Nashville became such a music hub is because if you look at a map.
Wow, that was a name we haven't come up.
And if you look at a map, Nashville's essentially the middle of the southeast and really the eastern half of the United States, and so musicians started traveling here because they could go to Kentucky or they could go down to Georgia, and it was literally centrally located. But he does this whole lecture that's just fascinating.
Wow.
Where's he located?
He's here. He's probably on Music Row.
Do you have his contact information?
You know what? I probably do. I'll email it to you.
That would be cool.
Because he would be awesome. I think anybody that lives in Nashville should hear his lecture on it. That's how important that is.
Seems like Mike Kerr was another big guy that would know everything about.
I learned so much from Mike. He's, I guess he moved Curb Records to Nashville in 1992, and he wanted to get out of Los Angeles to let his kids grow up here. And then he laughs about it. He says, Nashville's such a small community. He said, I feel like I had to give $10 million before I felt like a part of the community. And he says that pretty jokingly, but pretty serious. But what he's done for Nashville and Music Row is just unbelievable in terms of buying the Quonset Hut, RCA Studio B, both of which were going to be torn down. But he bought both of them and has restored them to exactly how they were. And you see articles now. People are gobbling up real estate on Music Row and turning them into condominiums, and I'm sure it's making Mike cringe. I hate seeing it.
Bet.
Because so much magic happens up and down these streets. And
we were all saying we've been up and down these streets, but none of us have stopped in anywhere on the streets.
You never know. I grew up here, and I had no idea what was under my nose. I mean, you can look out. I mean, there's a publishing company here, Big Machine Records, which is probably the biggest independent record company potentially in the world, with Taylor Swift, Tim McGraw, Rascal Flatts, Eli Young Band. They're 2 houses down. I mean, all of these are music production companies and studios, and it's so compact just on these 2 streets, which in New York everything's really spread out, in LA everything's really spread out. So to have all of this music happening literally on these 2 streets is very abnormal.
But it works.
It works. It absolutely does.
I was at Argosy University yesterday, and they have an incredible recording studio there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's studios all through Nashville. And now when people are getting their home studios, it's kind of a dwindling business, which is not great.
Well, we have real specific questions for you, but I'm just going to sit back and listen for now because I always talk. How's that?
There you go.
To start off, how would you describe the Music City brand in your own words?
Gosh, that's a loaded question. For me, it's obviously very specific because I am part of the music community here. I think I've read an article that I'll forward you all, an interview with a guy named Frank Liddell. He talked about how, executives at companies come and go, and companies even come and go, but the music in Nashville, it's always here. And it's such a part of who we are, especially on 16th and 17th Avenue. This town it's really built on music. Mike actually taught me how Music City really got its name. People think it's because of country music, and it's actually from the Fisk Jubilee Singers, which is pretty cool. They were out raising money, touring all over the country, and went and played in England. And they were so amazing. The Queen said, "Gosh, you all must be from Music City," which is essentially how Nashville kind of got that coin term, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I think music's a part of our culture. It's a part of us as a southern city. It's kind of built its way into everything we do.
You want to talk about Fisk and what we've heard?
Yeah, so we've got the story off of the CBC sites, CBB, I'm always mixing it up.
Yeah.
Me too.
And so Butch was explaining the same thing, how he fought for that. So we were interviewing Fisk, trying to get an interview with Fisk.
Yeah.
Dr. Kwame is over the singers.
Boss, yeah.
Yeah. So
there's an album that we worked on when I was at Curve that really chronicles a lot of that history musically, and Mr. Kwame's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he said he's having a hard time finding the history of going out to England and getting that. So we're gonna try to verify that for our case study.
Yeah.
Of course.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's, I mean, Mike, who is a historian buff, especially when it comes to music, and that's essentially the story that I've heard. And we did a whole album on it. The packaging on it's amazing, and it's
Wow.
really, tells the whole Fisk story.
What's the name of the album?
There's probably only one on Curb Records
Okay.
that if you look on their website, you'd be able to find it, and the music's just phenomenal.
Cool.
But that's a little known fact. People know about Music City.
Well, we're kind of intrigued by Jason's findings on what's the real origin if it's not this. But we'll see. Because he
Yeah,
seems to
let
have
me
some
know.
doubt.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's always what I'd heard is that people thought with Hee Haw and Conway Twitty that because of the
Mhm.
country music, but no, not really. It started a long time before that. And Robert Orman's lecture even goes back to farther than that, with Nashville being the central geographic hub of the traveling musicians, because they could literally be based here and then travel to the northeast and to the south and southeast, and that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
It would be. I mean, this was just yesterday because all of us believe the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even one of our classmates said it was just one of his favorite stories. You know,
Yeah.
so,
Really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Yeah, please do, because I was a part of the album. I sat with Mr. Kwame
Yeah.
down at the Ocean Way, which
Okay.
is it's an old church, and to watch the whole group in there with the sunlight coming through the stained glass
Oh,
windows
wow.
was just magical. Really, really neat.
Cool.
Yeah, we're gonna do our best to dig a little deeper, but yeah, that was coming in from out of town, didn't have a lot of time to talk, but he was just saying when he asked librarians and historians at Fisk, he wasn't able to find a story from their side. So
Really
you know, maybe
interesting.
maybe Mike knows more than they do.
It is.
Interesting.
Dun
Oh,
dun.
I know. Well, you all can get to the root of it.
Well, this is a viable, we hope, case study. Every output here is going to be, a physical part of history,
Mhm.
kind of all in one place. So whatever we can find out that could straighten it out.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's important to know where we
Mhm.
came from, to know where we're going.
Yeah. You had talked about when we're trying to get to what Music City brand means to you that companies come and go. Music is the backbone. It's been here. It stays here. How would you describe the brand? So when you're working with all these global artists and so on, and they hear Music City, what does that mean?
Well, music, I mean, you hear it, it's such a cliche, but it's so true that music is the common language. It's the one thing that really unites people from all different cultures, different ages, different walks of life. Music is such a connecting, universal language. And I'm fortunate enough it's what I do for a living, and that's how much I believe in it. It brings people together who have completely different political views, different religions, and it's amazing the way that music can connect people. And I think for a city to have that as their brand is pretty special.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
How do you market the brand? Or do you market Nashville as Music City?
Well, me being a local, I'm
Mhm.
obviously extremely proud of where I come from, and especially for what I do. That's a really interesting question too. For us as because Olay is a really unique company in that we're Canadian based. We're from Toronto, and I run the Nashville office, and the Nashville office versus our LA office and versus our Toronto office and New York office is very independent of itself. We have our own kind of unique identity in that we are still very songwriter based. It's really, I mean, if you stick around long enough today, you will see the writers start trickling in with their guitars, and they sit down, most of them still with pen and pad, and write these songs. And to me, it's such a unique culture blend of country music, which is obviously centered here in Nashville. But even more, there's so many, the Ryman, there's so many great places associated with music that separate Nashville from Austin, from New York, from LA. I mean, Nashville's very unique in that it is a music town, interspersed with healthcare and whatnot, and it just gives us kind of our own identity.
So I'm from here as well.
Mhm.
So did you know, like, first, where did you grow up? Kind of, what's your story as you made your way into music? Were you always going to be in music? When
You know what, I've written songs for a long time. I can remember as long as when I was 8, 9 years old playing on the piano and writing poetry and songs. When I got into high school, I played sports nonstop. So I never really had time to get into it. I had bands here and there, but making a living playing music I never even knew that was possible. So I went to the University of Georgia to pole vault, and my first day at 5 o'clock in the morning on the track, thought, I'm done. I'm burned out. I've played too many sports my whole life. And that kind of opened me up into really getting into the music world. And when I was a sophomore in college, I called Senator Lamar Alexander's son, Drew, who was a family friend who was working for Mike Curb. And I said, what do I need to do to get in the music business? I think this is something that I really would like to do. And my thought was, if I can do something that I love, eventually the money will come.
Right.
And I can honestly say I don't feel like I've worked a day in my life, which is pretty awesome. When I graduated University of Georgia with an English degree, I was gonna go to law school, but was just too immature and decided I wanted to chase this music thing. So I got an internship for a company called Sugar Hill in Durham, North Carolina. And I worked there my schedule there was insane. I worked from the record company from 8 to noon. At noon, I drove to the Burger King and changed from my music clothes to my law firm clothes, which meant I put on a suit. Worked at a law firm from 1 to 5, and then waited tables from 6 to 9, and then played music from 9 to whenever I went to sleep. And did that for 4 months, and then Drew, of all people, called and said, hey, we just had somebody leave the company. Would you be interested in interning? I said, absolutely. When can I start? And then moved back, and I was at Curb for 10.5 years. But growing up here, I had no idea. I didn't know what Music Row was. I didn't know what records were made here, songs that really influenced my life. I mean, I was talking to somebody last night. We're talking about time. All of a sudden, just you can't pinpoint years, and I pinpoint years by what records were number one. I can tell you what records were number one in 1989, 86, and I'll tell you who's the best at it is Mike Curb. We used to play a game. We'd say, what was the number one record on March 11th,
Are you serious?
1963? And he can pretty much tell you who wrote the song, what record was number one, what the artist was, and where that catalog is.
So arguably, he is the rainmaker of music, right?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
I was thinking you'd say he can tell me what song is number one. You say he can tell you the songwriter.
He can tell you he knows it
I
all.
mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's funny, I used to think, gosh, how could he do that? But then when you're in music long enough, I can associate what records were number one when. And it's funny, they say Nashville is a music town, is a 10-year town, in that it takes 10 years to be successful. I started at Curb Records on October 21st, 2002. And on October 21st, 2012, I had a number one record as a songwriter. 10 years
Wow.
literally to the day,
Wow.
which is pretty wild.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Montgomery Bell.
Oh, okay, NBA.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had a dinner last night, actually, at NBA with all the people that are in the music business. I think there's 4 of us. Which is that we are all talking about all of this exactly. It's like there aren't many local Nashville people in the music business. There's so many transplants here, it's fun, but most of them are smarter and go on to healthcare and be attorneys and doctors.
Uh-huh. So what role did Music Row play in the making of the Music City brand, and where do you see it going in the future?
To me, it's a huge part. I mean, this is where the music is created, up on 16th and 17th Avenue, and it's not just country music. I mean, it's the Kings of Leon, it's Black Eyed Peas. I mean, there's everything from hip-hop to bluegrass to rock. There's such an influx of music here. I think country music has kind of really helped put us on the map, and I think the CMA has done a really good job doing that. But there's a ton of great music in town. And I think it's really unique in that it is so geographically compact. I mean, it's all right here, and there's such a sense of community. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is if somebody, for example, there's an executive who got sick recently, and whether you're a competitor or not, the whole town shut down, put on a benefit to raise money for them, and that's kind of how this community works. It's everybody, we compete, but we also really care for each other and take care of each other, which I think makes this town really unique. And New York's not like that, LA's not like that. It's really it's Nashville, which is fun to be a part of.
Yeah. When did Music Row start? Do you know the history of?
I don't. I know. I couldn't tell you exact. I know the people who were very instrumental in actually coining what
Right.
Music Row, and it actually started with the Quonset hut, which is right down here on 16th Avenue. Is one of the first studios. It's the Bradley family, Harold Bradley, and they essentially moved their studios over here, and people slowly followed.
Okay.
And Mike has actually completely restored that studio, and it's amazing. It's how, gosh, Bob Dylan and Johnny Cash and
Mhm.
Patsy Cline, all sorts of people have recorded in there, and then RCA Studio B. And that's the thing, is it's relative. It's not. I mean, Music City from the country standpoint is not that old. I mean, Harold Bradley's still alive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I probably said this, but just to be clear, the music is also recorded, right, on 16th and 17th.
Yes, some of it recorded underneath us
Mhm.
down here. I've done work in so many studios here. There's Ocean Way, there's Sound Emporium, there's Soundstage. There's a ton of studios up and down here. 16th, 17th, there's a ton in Berry Hill now, which is a huge Blackbird studio, and there's a ton of studios over there. But yeah, most of it's written here in these halls up and down. I mean, there have been a lot of hit records that have come out of this building alone, which is
So cool. It's
Really
so
cool.
modest. I mean, it's not what you would think of.
well. That's what I love about this building. If people drive by, and if you didn't know what it was, you wouldn't
Mhm.
care. And that's kind of how Nashville is.
It is,
I mean, you go
it
in and you
is.
have coffee, and there's Keith Urban having coffee, and nobody really
Mhm.
cares. Which and people like it. I
Yeah,
mean,
the stars
Right.
like it.
yeah, everyone's kind of leaves everybody alone. In fact, I've worked with the Judds and Tim McGraw and Lee Brice, and only person I've ever been starstruck over is Guy Clark, who's just a Texas troubadour songwriter, and his writing is so phenomenal that he's the only one that I ever ran into and thought, oh my gosh, there's Guy Clark. Which is such a Nashville thing, because no one has probably ever even heard of him.
I've seen that name somewhere, but I don't
Me
know
too, that's
him
what I'm thinking.
particularly. Yeah.
You know, his writing is just unbelievable. He's another who was going to go to law school and is just an unbelievable, brilliant literature guy. And his writing, just for some reason, I attached to it. Which is another fun thing about Music City versus Los Angeles, to where there's paparazzi, and here's Nashville still very humble, and everybody's just kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the normal thing.
I wonder how many people drive down these roads as tourists who just think they're a bunch of houses because they all look like cute
Mhm.
houses.
Yeah, they do, and gosh, the songs that have been written in this town are just, I mean, that's the thing about what we do, is the songs change lives. I mean, I've been a part of
Yeah.
it. There was a song written by Doug Johnson and Joe Henry called Skin that I worked for Doug when he wrote the song for Rascal Flatts. And the group did not want to record it. Their producer pretty much forced them to record it. They hated the song so much at this point that they didn't want it on the album, but the label wanted it on the album, so they put it on as a hidden track. So basically the album would play through 10 or 11 tracks, and if you kept it running, the song would come on.
Huh.
Well,
I've done that before. I was like, I didn't know this was on here. You could have just let it play.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, then radio heard it. Same
Mhm.
thing, a DJ just left it playing, and the song played. They ended up singling it. Ended up being a #1 record, and it's about a girl with cancer. It's called Sarah Beth is Scared to Death. And it's about a girl who shaves her head and is worried about going to the prom, and her boyfriend comes to pick her up, and he had shaved his head. And it went #1, and about 2 weeks later, I was sitting at Doug's desk, and the phone rang. They said, is Doug Johnson there? And I said, no, can I take a message? And they said, well, yeah, this is so-and-so from Berea, Kentucky, and we just want to thank him for that song. Our daughter died last year of cancer, and her name was Sarah Beth. So every year now, Doug and the writers go up to Berea, Kentucky, and they do a benefit, and they've raised millions of dollars for cancer research, which
Cool.
that is the power of the song and the power that was written right here on Music Row.
And Rascal Flatts or Doug Johnson?
Rascal Flatts
Yeah.
recorded it, and Doug Johnson was a songwriter on it.
Why didn't they want to? Did they have a reason they didn't? They just thought it was too serious? Or?
Yeah, it's because it's a real serious song, and it was a waltz, and radio doesn't play waltzes, and it's a sad story, but it's a beautiful story, and but it's proof that great songs still do cut through, and that the music, it can change the world, and I've seen it firsthand, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty big on music, as I think everybody is. Like you said, music is like the universal language. And I've always wondered, since I'm in front of such a big exec, this is also a gospel music town. There's some Christian artists that are coming out there, very good hip hop. Have you heard any of these guys?
I have. I've worked with some of them through Word Records,
Yeah.
which is the big Warner Christian record company here. Some of the gospels. Larry Gatlin is someone in the Gatlin Brothers that I've worked with.
Larry Gatlin of the Gatlin Brothers. On the gospel side.
On the gospel
Okay,
side.
not hip hop.
Hip hop, no, hip hop.
That would be something.
Big Daddy Weave is
Okay.
someone at Word that we worked with, and I've dabbled in the Christian just from when I was at Curb because Mike's a co-owner in Word Records. He owns part of that company. But yeah, there's any sort of music that you could possibly think of. It's being made here.
I was just wondering, do you think there's a market for it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hip hop gets such a bad rap, and they think it's all about
Because of the mainstream stuff.
Yeah, and people
Yeah.
think it's derogatory lyrics, but it's not. It's really just a style of music, and the lyrical content can change.
Yeah.
There could probably be a huge market for it. I mean, I think the world needs to hear some positive things, and if that music relates to certain people, then why not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's such an avenue to spread a good message.
There's some good stuff out there, but the prevailing thought is just that of what you hear on radio.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want that crap.
Right.
But yeah, some artists like, I don't know if you heard of Lecrae or
Yeah.
Joe Baraka. I mean, these guys are. He's talking about songwriters.
Yeah.
I mean, words. It's amazing.
It's that whole genre is something I was never really engulfed in until we started working with Timbaland, and I watched some of these documentaries on Jay-Z and how they go in and write their songs, and they never write anything down, and they have just lyric after lyric. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Wow.
And they have these beats. They go in and you can watch Jay-Z kind of getting into it, and then one hits, he'll go into the studio and it's essentially one take.
Oh
and
my gosh.
It's such an amazing art form. It's crazy. Crazy.
What do you think? So you're a resident here and you've lived here, worked here. What do you think Nashville would be if it weren't for the music industry?
It'd be a sad place. It would be very quiet. Nashville's such a great, take out the music part, Nashville's still great in that with all the parks that we have, and the restaurant scene that's coming up has been great. Food in Nashville is starting to be amazing. We wouldn't have, what would separate us from anywhere else? From Atlanta or from Raleigh or from Birmingham. I mean, to have, everyone seems to love music, and it's, without me, it would be a sad place.
Do you think that, I know the goal of, I guess, a transition from Athens of the South to Country Music USA to Music City USA to Music City. Do you think it is a worldwide known brand?
I would say yes.
Okay.
And I work with a guy named Gilles Godard who travels internationally, and everybody knows Music City. In fact, there's a guy whom I just signed who wrote a song called Cruise, which is actually probably the biggest selling country music song of all time by Florida Georgia Line. And he said he was traveling somewhere crazy in the East, and he's just sat on a train next to somebody, and they said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Nashville." They said, "Oh, Music City." He said, "Yeah, and I'm a songwriter. We wrote a song called Cruise." He said, "Oh, baby, you a song. You make me want to roll my windows down." Which for that to happen thousands of miles away is, I mean, that shows that. That's right.
Didn't they play that at the CMAs?
They did.
I thought so.
Yeah.
That was my first CMA, so I was starstruck.
But for someone, a writer, to be so far away from home, and for them
It
to
is very
relate
cool.
with that to Nashville,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's it.
that would be a brand.
And where was that?
I'll have to ask him.
Okay.
I want to say it was somewhere completely wacky, like Turkey or.
Yeah. That's cool.
So, I have to ask this:
Okay.
who's a dark horse that if I come back to this recording 20 years from now, they're the next Tim McGraw, and you're like, nobody knows about this guy. You know, he's a songwriter or he's a performer.
Are you a bookie?
Yeah, no, I just
From
like
Detroit.
I like prophecies. You know, I want to see. I'm sure he's got somebody or 10
No,
people
I do.
there.
Well, that's what I do. What we do for a living is we
Yeah.
believe in people,
Yeah.
and we believe in them so much that we put a financial investment in them. I mean, that's what we do. I just signed a guy recently named Sam Grow,
Okay.
who came in and sang a Sam Cooke song that literally made me cry in the room, and we essentially signed him on the spot. Now we've got work to do with imaging, and we've got to get the music right, but a voice like that, it could reach every genre as long as we get the music right. So Sam Grow is one that we believe in. I ran into Lee Bryce, whom I worked with for 10 years when I was at Curb, and we laughed. He's now sold over 5 million records and coming off 3 huge number ones, and we laughed. I saw him 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Man, I remember when you were a no-name intern and I was a no-name songwriter."
Wow.
So 10 years can change a lot. You know, that's another thing that's about Music City is that you see people come in and literally hop off a Greyhound bus. You say you can still smell the diesel on them. And there's thousands that leave too, but you never know whoever jumps off that next bus, who it could be the Garth Brooks that's going to go on and sell the millions of records, or someone that's going to influence our culture. And I guarantee you they're out there right now, and they're probably waiting tables and or bartending, and it's people that come to this town because there's a dream here, and we're fortunate enough to try to help that dream come true. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't, but to get to write songs or get to record music or get to promote or market music, at the end of the day, it's still music, and it's a wonderful thing, you know. And it's the city of dreams and city of broken dreams, but that's life.
Mhm. How do you leverage the Music City brand when you market?
In terms of what? How like leverage against?
Well, any competition. So we've talked about Austin being, you know, a potential competitor and so on. Or do you use the Music City brand when you market?
I do. I guess the best scenario I could say is when writers who are from out of town, say they're from, I don't know, Kansas, and they want to write country music, and it's, if you want to write country music, then you need to be in Nashville. I mean, it's just like if you want to catch dolphin, then you need to be on the coast. I mean, it's kind of as if you want to, you know, grow corn, you go to Iowa. It's that kind of the same thing. And how I convince, it's a hard thing for me to tell someone to pack up their bags and move here to chase a dream, because I don't want to be responsible for it, but part of me does, because what we do is so great. But the odds of someone having success and making a living doing music is really tough. It's extremely tough, and most people don't get to do it. And but Nashville is so unique in that it's still a big small town, which is great. To where New York is huge and lots of concrete. LA is its own thing. It's great if you like that LA scene. But Nashville it's very southern town. The people are so wonderful.
Agreed.
Really across all boards, and the music obviously, but really everyone says, gosh, everyone in Nashville is so friendly. So yeah, just that's it. I mean, in that it's still a small southern town, and it's growing, but
I'm having a hard time. We've covered so much.
As you might say, we got some good sound bites.
Yeah, we got. Yeah, trying to think of not being redundant, because, like I said, we've covered a lot. But just so your songwriters. This is what I was thinking and couldn't put it in words. So the Music City brand, do you see it? How do you see it as far as what you think? You said when everyone wants to write country music, they should come to the Music City. So you can't say that right now. This is a question. You can't say that right now to a classical artist or hip hop artist or a jazz artist. You can't say, if you want to come and write music, come to Music City for them. So do you think it's 90% country music in that Music City brand?
Gosh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You could walk into any of these buildings and there's going to be a different style of music going on. I know because I've seen it and I've witnessed. I've sat in a recording studio with Nashville Orchestra and listen to the classical music. No, it's such a melting pot of music, from Taylor Swift to the Kings of Leon to the Black Eyed Peas to, I mean, there's so much music here, so it's so much more than country.
Mm-hmm.
I speak predominantly of country because that's really what my focus is.
Gotcha.
But at the end of the day, songs can transcend genres.
That's true.
There are songs that have been hits in the country market and that have been hits in the pop market that have been jazz standards. There's a songwriter we work with a ton who had a huge Etta James hit, who's now writing songs for Rascal Flatts. So songs to me are great. Songs are not format specific, if that makes sense. A great song doesn't necessarily have to be a great country song. I mean, there are songs that will be covered in every genre forever, and that's when you know you really have a hit. But yeah, in terms of Nashville, there's so much different musical diversity going on. I think that's what really kind of makes us unique, and that Austin is known for the kind of, you know, country, little edgy, little wacky, which they take pride in their weirdness. I forget what what's their slogan.
I take pride in my weirdness. Yeah.
There's what's their slogan?
I have no
It's
idea.
Keep Austin weird is what the bumper sticker is.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, and then yeah, but for me, for doing what I do, to be a part of people getting to create and who really come in as dreamers every day, that is pretty unique. And to live in a city that supports that, and to where there's commerce around it, that's pretty special.
What are the nuts and bolts of this industry? I mean, it goes from guy gets off the bus, writes a song, you take the song, you make it marketable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can stop me anywhere I'm not doing this right. You make it marketable. Now, you're connected to all the radio stations. How does it go from this product to out of this product?
This industry is so big. I could tell you, I went through leadership music, which is people from every part of the music